Well, good afternoon, everybody. I want to welcome you to the October 4th Lunchtime Hot Topic. We've got a healthy agenda for you today. Again, this is Brad Neuenswander, Deputy Commissioner. We're going to have an update on assessment results. These from Beth Fultz. These will be last year's 2017 results. You have had them locally, but Beth's going to update you on the timeline to how the state will now move forward with those results. Branden Johnson's going to give you an update on the dropout graduation summary report and visit with you a little bit about what we're looking at with chronic absenteeism under the board's outcome of graduation. Jessica Noble is going to share with you some funding opportunities for volunteer initiatives around civic engagement through AmeriCorps, some opportunities for some funds that you can use locally that you may not be aware of. Kerry Haag is going to give you an update on our socio-emotional character development standards revision process that we're getting ready to undertake. Also, she'll visit a little bit about anti-bullying awareness and some upcoming conferences and workshops. And then Tammy Mitchell, one of our school redesign specialists, is going to provide you an update on our school redesign initiative with the Mercury 7 and the Gemini districts. And again, as we move forward this year with our lunchtime hot topics, we're going to continue to provide you updates on progress as we're moving forward across the state with the board outcomes. We will also try to give you point you to resources and highlights that are available for your use. We'll try to continue to give you updates on timelines and due dates, as well as we want to remind you about the upcoming annual conference. That's coming up October 11th and 13th, right around the corner. The theme this year is Kansans Can Imagine. The highlights of the annual conference is always school districts coming in and sharing out what they're doing relative to the board outcomes. And we're excited this year. Our opening keynote speaker is Dr. David Connolly, professor at the University of Oregon. He has really been a leader over the last decade around college and career readiness and what the unique skills that it does take for an individual to be successful, not only going on to post-secondary, but into careers. And then we're excited to have Manny Scott. He's one of the original Freedom Writers, if you've seen the movie and the series. He's going to really, in the conference, you know, when we talk about we want to lead the world in the success of each student, he's going to share with you very emotional, very heartfelt message about how we can do that by instilling hope in each student and really building that strong personalized relationship with them, and we can do this. So we're excited to have Manny closing the conference out. So we hope to see everybody. We've got 1,000 or so people registered, so we're excited for the annual conference coming up. Again, if you have questions, need clarification, send that to lunchtime@ksde.org and we'll follow up with you, or if you have suggestions on future agenda items that you would like us to cover. Again, we're excited to be on this journey with you as we're going to lead the world in the success of each student with our Kansans Can initiative. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Beth Fultz. I'm an assistant director on the Career Standards and Assessment team. Last month I talked to you about post-secondary success, and this month I'm back to talk to you about state assessment results. As you know, the vision that the Kansas State Board of Education has said is that a successful high school graduate would have the following skills: academic preparation, cognitive preparation, technical skills, employability skills, and civic engagement. We believe they need all of these components to be successful in post-secondary education in the attainment of an industry recognized certificate or in the workforce without the need for remediation. At the state level, right now, what we have the ability to do is look at academic preparation and cognitive preparation through the administration of state assessments. Academic preparation, we believe, should be tied or aligned to the Kansas content standards. We've just approved new content standards in math. The ELA standards will be going to the board in October for the first read. Science standards will be up for review. We have standards in history, government, social studies, and then we have non-assessed standards. But all academic instruction in the districts should relate to the content standards that have been approved by the Kansas State Board of Education. Once we have the content standards, then KSDE develops and administers standards-based assessment. All of the items on a state assessment relate back to the standards that should have been taught to the students through that academic preparation. We administer state assessments in ELA and math every year in grades 3 through 8 and once in high school, which we've selected as grade 10. In science, we test every year in grades 5, 8, and 11. And something we've added to the academic preparation piece would be the English learners. We administer the CALPA 2 in grades K through 12 to all English learners until they reach that proficiency level and they no longer need services for English language development. State assessment results. I just want to go through this with you briefly, just because there's always some confusion about why are you releasing state assessment results in October. Well, for CALPA 2, we administer the test in February and the first 2 weeks in March. And then for the other state assessments, we administer the tests from mid-March through the end of April. Once the assessment window closes, CETE then takes all of the data and prepares student reports and building and district level reports. Those reports are available through KITE, they're produced by CETE, and they're available to you in May. We recommend with the student reports, you go ahead and send those reports home to parents at the end of the year, and then over the summer, building and districts can look at the data provided in the reports to make any curriculum decisions that might need to be made for the following year. At the same time those reports are being released by CETE, KSDE receives the data from CETE. We have no data while the testing window is open, and it isn't until those student reports are prepared that CETE exports the data to KSDE. Once we receive the data, we run it through during the month of June. We put it through some testing with some business rules. For those of you that have administered state assessments for some time, you know that we feel very strongly as a state that to hold schools accountable for student performance, then the school needs to have an opportunity to instruct the students. So we have a couple different business rules that are written so that when you're looking at your data in authenticated applications on the KSDE secure website, that you can look at students that were there by the count date, which however that falls around 9/20, so that you have that opportunity to instruct the students prior to the administration of the state assessments. So that data is located in AMOSS, Academic Measures of Student Success. That's the title of the application in authenticated applications where you would find the data in July. It's the state level data is embargoed. You're not free to share state results at that time. You can look at your results, and we hope that you take the month of July to actually look at and make sure that you really know what's going on with the students in your schools, and that students are counted appropriately for all the different buckets that we might disaggregate data in. That happens during the month of July, and then during the month of August and the first part of September, KSDE works with the data so that we can get it through all the checkpoints that we need to go through, and then actually get it loaded into the building report card. In October of every year, we provide data from KSDE to the public on state assessments. That occurs at the Kansas State Board of Education meeting in October with a presentation. At the same time, as soon as that presentation is complete, we release the data on the building report card to the public, and this data is also provided in the KSDE annual report. So there's several different ways that we provide to the public. That's the first time from when the testing window, that the test results from the tests administered that closed the previous school year is actually shared with the public. So I just want to walk through today and take a little bit of opportunity to help those of you that might not know, or refresh those of you that are familiar with this, where you find the data on the KSDE website. This is the application. It's called Academic Measures of Student Success. When you're in authenticated applications, that's what you should be choosing. If you don't have access to it, it is you just click that you want to add the application, and then the email goes back to the superintendent to provide that says it's okay for you to be able to get in and look at this data. So on the left-hand side, you're going to find a whole list of reports, and I just want to briefly walk through these reports for you. Performance by grade is going to show you how each grade within either the building or the district is performing. Participation details is going to track the, that one of the requirements we have is that we expect a minimum of 95% of your students to take state assessments. It is an expectation that all students take state assessments, and so that threshold, that expectation at 95% is set very high on purpose, because we want all students to take the test. Ambiguous school error. This is what you would be doing during the month of July to clean up your data, we like to refer to at the agency. So what you look for is you see if you have any students that would be listed on this ambiguous school report, because it's possible that they left your school and you forgot to send the exit record through, and some other school, they enrolled in another school and they tested them. So, we only apply test records to one school. So that's where all the business rules about entry and exit dates come into play. But two schools cannot claim the same student, and so that has to be resolved during that month of July. The complete student test file, I would recommend everyone download this and save it, because this is the record you have, the complete student test file record. Everyone in your building or district that took state assessments and all the information we have. So you can look at it. Just open it and look at it on the screen. You can download it, and then you're also going to see your graduation summary report here. New that's been added this year to this section would be your KELPA 2. So, right now we require students to score proficient 2 years in a row to exit services. So that's where you're going to get your list of students that scored proficient 2 years in a row. Again, you can do the complete download, or you can check your participation. And then what I've showed you then on the screen is how you would filter. And this drop-down box with the arrow, it's going to list all the districts. Once you get to the districts, you can select a school. You can just look at the district level. You can toggle between math, science, ELA. We don't have KELPA 2 here right now, but we will for next year. You can look at all students. You can look at subgroups of students. You can look at your students with free and reduced lunch and see how they perform. You can sort it for English learners and see how they're performing on the state assessments. And you can select specific grades, or you can get all grades, and then you can toggle for years. Right now we have 2015, 16, and 17 available. And the other thing I need to talk to you about then would be the two different types of population. We have the accountability population. That's the students that were in your building on count day around September 20th, stayed in your building and took state assessments. That's your basic accountability population. The participation population would be any student that shows up in your building prior to the day before state assessments open. So we look at that. We expect any student in your building to take state assessments, and that's where we calculate the participation rate from, would be that other population. So you can toggle between those two. I encourage you, go out and look at your data and be familiar. If you have some data that you're unhappy with, you can drill down to the specific students and figure out what's going on. Second, I want to talk to you about the building report card and where you find that information. You find the building report card link on the KSDE website at www.ksde.org. If you look on the right-hand side of that, you just go to popular resources, and it's all alphabetical. The building report card is pretty close to the top. You can get to authenticated applications if you want to go into AMOSS from here. You can see what the latest thing the commissioner has to say. Data Central is going to have all the data that our agency makes available to the public, including the building report card. And the other one, while we're on this page, I just want to draw your attention to is this Kansas Can. We're putting out a lot of resources around the vision and all of the board goals. And this would be the best place, the easiest way to find that information would be to click on the link, this link. So let's assume I clicked on the building report card, and it's going to take you to this page that says, welcome to the building report card, find your school. Okay, you can find your school or your district, and you can search for it, and then the information will come up. If you want to look at some other district or schools data, it's open to the public, anyone can look at it. Today, for this demonstration purpose, we're going to assume that we're viewing state results. When you get to that link will take you to this page. This is in the middle. You're going to have the board goals right above it, and then you're going to see data and measures. And all of the data that we make available on the building report card is right here for you to click on behind this tile. If you want to know the demographic makeup of a building, if you want to go in and see how accurate it is compared to what you think, what you know you have in your school, to check to make sure data is getting reported as accurately, you can go in and find out the percentage of all the different subgroups that we track here under demographic information. I know in October you do the dropout graduation summary report. Information would be found here. Last month I talked to you about post-secondary education. That would be the very first tile. What I want to focus on today would be performance level results. That's where you're going to find the assessment results. Anyone that wants to see the assessment results that are released in a couple weeks to the state board, this is the tile you would click on. Once you do that, you're going to see a report that looks like this. This is the 2016 data and 15 data. And we will always try to display 2 years of data for the public to look at. So I will point again on the right. You can filter between math, ELA, science. On a history government year, if we're assessing, it would be there. You can either look at all grades together, which is what I have on the screen right now, or you can filter it for specific grades. If you want to look at how your students with disabilities are doing as a subgroup, you can click on that subgroup and it will show you this exact same chart. And again, you can toggle between the two groups, accountability or participation. And so then what this is going to show you would be the percent of students, this is last year's state results, that scored at the level 1, 2, 3, or 4 on the state assessment. So you can see last year, between 2015 and 16, we had an increase in math at the state for all grades from 7.8 to 9.8 at the very top level. Unfortunately, when you look at the very bottom level, you're going to see that we also increased at the bottom level. So level 1 from 23% to 26%. So somewhere in the middle, these kids were shifting. And so you can look at your data over time, and that's what the public will see when we release this information on October 17th. So what should you do with these state assessment results? First, you need to look at them and be familiar with them in case you get any phone calls from your local press, so that you can answer questions. KSDE is in the middle of a very large initiative on assessment literacy training. If you're not keyed into it, you need to get in touch with us so we can help you with, are you giving the right assessments to help assure that you really are teaching the standards to the students. You know, one of the things we've talked about for quite some time is having a balanced assessment system. We think that balance comes through formative, interim, and summative. Summative isn't the end all. Summative is just what it says. It sums up everything that you've been doing through the year and gives us a good state level perspective on what's happening in the state as far as how the standards are being taught out in the classrooms. Formative assessments, another big initiative. I would encourage you to check out some formative sessions at the KSDE annual pre-conference. Each of the content areas will be focusing on formative assessment in the afternoon of the pre-conference. Interim, last year was the first time we introduced interims. Interims are linked to the standards. You can do unit level assessments. Interim, that would be specific standards you can go in and identify and use for interim purposes, how successful the kids are learning prior to the summative assessment. And new for the 2018 assessment, we're going to have predictive interims to the summative assessment. So we will talk more about that at the annual conference too. And then finally, we have the summative assessment. So we believe if you're really looking at this balanced assessment system, you're teaching the standards, you're doing formative instruction, you're checking interim at the interim time periods, either at the unit or the predictive, that those summative scores should increase just because you really are working in that balanced system. The other thing with how to use the state assessment results would be to call KSDE technical assistance. We have content staff available to come out. If you notice that 5th grade math is an area where you're weak and you need someone to come out and talk to you about math at the around that content area, or ELA or science, we have staff available to do that. And then just in general, if you have assessment issues, we have assessment staff available to help you on the assessment side. And the other thing I want to point out is that we also have TAS and technical assistants, and they can also work with you on the content side if you're finding gaps and maybe how you should reach, to close the gap between different subgroups of students and really focus in on what you need to do with particular groups of students. TASN's an very excellent resource to use for that. The other thing I want to share with you is that, yes, there is a place for assessment data in KESA. And I know that as you're all working through your district accreditation documentation, that sometimes we get a lot of phone calls saying, well, there isn't any place for assessments in here. That's not true. And Jeanette Novo will be at the pre-conference this year, and she will be doing a session. So if you're confused about how you use assessment data in your KESA documentation, be sure you check out that session on Wednesday afternoon also. So that's really what I wanted to talk to you today about, was where you find the data. You should be looking at your data now so you're prepared when that release comes out from the state board on October 17th. If you need to call us, we would be glad to help you. And my phone number and email address is on the screen for you. So I hope you'll contact me, and look forward to talking to you in the future about other assessment issues.
Welcome everybody to the hot topics for October. I appreciate you checking in and watching this video. This is going to be a brief little review over the Dropout Graduation Summary Report, or the DGSR. My name is Branden Johnson. I'm the Assistant Director here at KSDE, in charge of the Dropout Graduation Summary Report process. Here are the reminders that you need to make note of. Okay, the window is only open for this time of year, so October 2nd to October 31st. This is your only time to make corrections to your exit dropout data. So nothing before this. So the graduating class in 2016, there's nothing we can do about that. The only thing we can help out with is 2016 to 2017 class, and then anyone else that's younger than those kids. So if you have anybody that exited, like a 7th grader who left last year and that still is on your books, you can get that cleaned up. Same thing for anybody in between those grades. So unresolved exits and dropouts, grades 7 through 12 during the 16-17 school year. Please make these corrections by submitting an exit record from your local system and upload it into KIDS. Then KIDS will talk to the DGSR and clean that up. We did send out an email to all the superintendents with 2 different PowerPoints. So there's one PowerPoint that's for new users of the DGSR, so anyone who's never used this process before. It's a little bit more elementary, and that way it's just kind of a brief overview to get your feet wet and understanding it. For those of you that have been doing this for multiple years and feel very comfortable, there was another PowerPoint sent out for experienced users, returning users. Use that, get right in there, get to work, and get this cleaned up. Please go into the DGSR and check the special circumstances removed from cohort tab as soon as possible. This is where you're going to find the most bang for your buck. Get in there, find out any of those students in there that might have graduated, transferred to another school, transferred out of state. Maybe they're a student with an IEP who graduated but has to come back for special services. Make sure you put an exit code 22 for that kid. That way you can remove them as a graduate, but still keep them in your system so that you can get funding for them as they go throughout their learning experience beyond this. So please use the PowerPoints that were sent out to your superintendents first and foremost. Then go on the website, watch any of the webinars that Jessica Noble did in the past, or any of the other resources that are on there. And if you still have issues or concerns, please contact me. My information is right here. That's my email. That's my work phone number. In October, obviously, it's going to be really busy to get a hold of me through the phone. So if you send me an email, at least I'll have a paper copy and I'll be able to get back to you. Most of the time, any issue that comes up is going to be an issue where you just need to send a correct exit record with either a correct date or talking to another school district to make sure they have claimed a student that you know is transferred. Just wanted to give you a brief update on the chronic absenteeism setting here in the state of Kansas. We have added the chronic absenteeism data to the AMOSS authenticated application. So if you go to your authenticated applications, log in and go to the AMOSS application, on there on the left-hand side, there will be a chronic absenteeism tab. Please feel free to click on that, check on it, see what the data says for your district and each of your buildings. This is just used to inform you on the situation for each grade level and how they attended the school based on percentages. You can go all the way down to the building level, break that down so you can find out if maybe your last year's sixth graders had missed 30% of them missed 10% or more of school, and you can start helping them now as seventh graders, giving them more support, making them feel comfortable. But the purpose of this is to kind of show you the flexibility for which you have as an LEA in all your buildings and what you can do to have better data for attendance. According to the United States Department of Education, the definition of chronically absent is the unduplicated number of students absent 10% or more school days during the school year. This is the definition we are using in the state of Kansas. We do account for duplicated SSIDs and remove them, and anything that happens like that, our programmers are set up to catch it so that one student is accounted for in each school they attend throughout the year, but no duplicate amounts for each school. So if a student has a duplicate SSID for some reason in a school, hopefully you will catch that at the district level, but if not, we will catch it here at the state level. According to the United States Department of Education, they have made a couple of changes here, just so you can see what the revisions are. We are tracking the chronically absent definition for all K through 12 students. It is a percentage, not days, okay? The only thing you have to worry about days is if a student has been enrolled for you for 10 days, they immediately start beginning to be a part of the process for tracking their chronically absent data. But after that, we just care about percentage. So if they're with you for 30 days and they miss 3 days, that's 10% of the school days they were there, they would be considered chronically absent because it's the percentage. The unduplicated number of students is just like this. If you're in a district in Northeast Kansas for the first semester, and then you transfer to a district in Southwest Kansas, you will count in both of those schools. They won't be only one school. Both schools will have a chronically absent report, or none at all if the student wasn't chronically absent. And then they'll have a summary at the state level as well for that whole student's annual percentage of attendance. New, there's a minimum number of days a student has to be enrolled. We talked about that. It's 10 days. Do students who arrive late at school, tardies, count as absences? This is important. You have this flexibility to set for your procedures in your buildings. You can even make it a policy at your district level if you have that ability. Only students who miss 50% or more of a school day should be counted as absent. The definition of tardy is defined in section 2.5. And we're going to get down there. You see it at the very bottom. It says a student who is absent for less than 50% of the school day is tardy. That's according to the feds. That gives you a lot of flexibility there. All right, so make sure you see that. Another point of emphasis here is that the Office of Civil Rights says that any student who is participating in instruction or instruction-related activities at an approved off-grounds location for the school day is present. Okay, so school activities, you are considered present. Here are some issues that we have with the LEA to LEA. So at the state level, we're trying to help give you guys guidance and definitions so that you can have cleaner data and better track your students so that they can get the supports they need. Regularly enrolled means enrolled for 5 or more hours of instruction each school day. Plus, on top of that is the post-secondary option, so students that go to trade schools or a university to get credits or a JUCO to get credits, those things count. This allows for you to have a lot of flexibility, but it's important that you have a set procedure throughout your entire district at the very least, so that each of your buildings' data looks the same. So when we come in and have conversations to support you, we know that each building is taking attendance the same way. Things to talk about from building to building. Are your district policies and procedures in place for daily attendance? Do you know that when a student is more than 15 minutes late, what are you going to do? If a student's gone for the first half of the day, how are you marking them? If it's less than 50%, how are you doing those types of things? Having those questions. When teachers take attendance, like they submit the attendance for that hour, and a student walks in the room after they submitted that, is the teacher the one that fixes that? Is that on an administrative assistant, secretary? How's that procedure work within each building? And is that the same throughout the entire district? And then who's in charge of contacting teachers when attendance hasn't been taken? So if administrative assistant's in charge of the attendance and first hour's gone by and one of your teachers didn't take attendance, who contacts that person? Is it an assistant principal, a secretary? Who could it be? Just making sure that you have a set procedure. And then make sure you understand the difference between a tardy and an absence and the flexibility that you have as a state. You can also come up with another term if you want for anything for a student that misses a full block but is there for the rest of the day. You can have a term for that. It's up to you to define that. School activity. It's important to understand that any student that is involved in a school activity should be considered present. That is a learning opportunity. It should not be, don't put excused, don't put, or obviously you wouldn't put unexcused, but don't put excused for that absence, because excused actually goes against their seat time. We got to make sure school activity is equal to present within your local SIS. That will really help a lot of districts out with their attendance. Here's a couple of resources you can use. The University of Chicago Consortium. They have the To and Through project. They also have their own university data that they use to track students and their attendance and helping them out. They have 6 ways to improve high school graduation rates. You can make use of their proven early warning indicators, really talking about student success in their 9th grade year. If you fail no more than one class, core class, you are 4 times more likely to graduate on time than your peers. Focus on attendance data. Each week of absence as a 9th grader increases their likelihood of dropping out by 20%. That's huge. We need to make sure that we have supports in place to catch those students before they fall behind. And we also want to make sure that we are embracing the collective responsibility for academic success. We need to have a culture where all adults are a part of the success for all students, so that the teachers care as well. Like, having conversations, hey, I missed you yesterday. If there's anything I can do to help you out so that you don't miss, let me know. I know you missed yesterday. What can I do to help get you caught back up? Don't put all the ownership back on them. Something could have happened at home where it was outside of their control for them to miss. Let's support them, make them feel wanted, needed, and in the classroom. Here's a couple other things from the University of Chicago. You need to make sure we raise the bar to B's or better. 95% of students with a 3.0 GPA as freshmen graduate, 72% with a 2.0 GPA. Those are huge numbers. We need to make sure we're aware of our students' progress and their success as freshmen as they enter our buildings. We need to make sure we foster supportive relationships to ease the transition. Do we have vertical alignment with middle school and high schools? Are teachers, counselors, administrators in the building level going down to the 8th grade level, building relationships with these students, understanding their wants and needs, not only academically, but socially, emotionally, their interests, their passions? Are those things all aligning with each other? So when they walk into their freshman year of high school, they're put in the correct courses with the correct teachers and given the right kind of support. That's important to have. And then make sure that we assess and refine our disciplinary practices. We have to make sure that our most at-risk students are in class the most. Suspensions, in-school suspensions, taking away courses that a lot of students really find the most valuable to the individual self, those types of things. Are those beneficiary to the student, and do they help them want to be at school and be successful? Johns Hopkins University also has a lot of information. You can always research their Johns Hopkins University high school graduation initiative. They define student success to make sure that their students' needs must be met by an adult response that is reliable, robust, and durable through high school and beyond. This gets to the point of Dr. Watson's. We need to make sure that we give students contact with an adult for more than 1 year if they find that relationship meaningful. If they really value one or more of their teachers' relationships, let those two have multiple courses together throughout the years. That way they have that connection, that reliability for one another. Then adult success. Are adults in the buildings and district level, are they encouraged to meet students where they are and to take chances? Is everything really prescriptive in your school, or do they have the freedom and the flexibility to individualize, personalize the learning and meet the students where they are to help them find value in that? And then a very important thing is equity of access, making sure that all of our students have access to all of the courses that they could be interested in, from anything from IB, AP courses, college courses, career and tech ed courses, arts courses, all those types of things. We have equity of access for every single student. Not having a bunch of secluded pockets in our schools where only a certain group of people get access to things. And then making sure that our process and structures that promote and enable continuous improvement are relevant and understood, not only by leadership, but also by the people implementing that as teacher level. Other resources that you can look up, and I know that you don't have access to these hyperlinks, but if you Google all of these things, America's Promise Alliance, Attendance Works, National Dropout Prevention Center, Center on School Turnaround, you will have access to everything that I have access to as well. These are great resources to help make sure that you have support in your district, your buildings, and that everybody understands the importance of it. Again, the chronically absent data is in the AMOSS authenticated application. Please look at that, review it, understand where your students are and their attendance needs, and then make sure that you have an early warning systems team in place at each of your buildings where this is needed, to catch students early, to give them the supports that they and their families need to understand the value of being at school every single day. My information is on the screen. Please feel free to contact me via email or phone, and I look forward to working with you in the near future.
Hi everyone, and welcome to this Hot Topics on our Notice of Funding Opportunity for AmeriCorps Kansas programs. I'm Jessica Noble. I'm the Executive Director of the Kansas Volunteer Commission. We are the state service commission that's tasked with administering the funding for our AmeriCorps programming. The Kansas Volunteer Commission is housed within the State Department of Education, and we have three main branches of activities that we do. We operate the Kansas Mentors, which is a mentoring partnership that supports over 150 organizations across the state. We oversee the AmeriCorps Kansas funding and the subgrantees. And we also have our Volunteer Generation Fund, which promotes volunteerism in Kansas. AmeriCorps Kansas are a great way for you to expand existing services or to develop new programming that you might have in mind that somehow addresses a community need that you have. Since you all are within the school district, it's reasonable to think that your community need will be around education, but perhaps you want to do some programming in the Healthy Futures area, and that would be acceptable as well. Our current subgrantees, their awards range from $68,000 on the low end. That would probably be close to the minimum that you could come in at because you do have to request at least 5 members, and we'll get to that in a minute. And so in order to do that, that grant is going to look somewhere around the $60,000 to $70,000 range. But there really is no end cap, and we do have a subgrantee that receives close to $400,000 a year for their programming. Any of the following entities can apply for the AmeriCorps Kansas program, including, as you see there, Institution of Higher Education and our K-12 school districts. We do have 2 current programs that operate within the school district. One is operated by the school district and the other is operated in partnership with the school district, and I'll talk about those in just a minute. So before we dive into this, you might be wondering, well, this is great, AmeriCorps sounds fantastic, but why are you telling me about this? Well, I believe that we have unmet community needs in our schools, and AmeriCorps members provide actual direct service and manpower to be able to address those community needs. I will also be abundantly frank with you and say that last year we sent back $250,000 because no one applied for it. So it is my goal this year that we will have enough applicants of quality applicants to grant out all of the $1.4 million that we receive. So as I mentioned, AmeriCorps programs are addressing a community need. So you're devising some sort of program that would use members. So these are individuals that can be anywhere from 17 years old to 117 years old. There really is no maximum age for AmeriCorps service. The members will receive a modest living allowance, and they also receive an education award. So there is an incentive for the member as well. So you might also be thinking about this AmeriCorps program in a twofold way. If you have a number of students who are leaving your school district and aren't going on to higher education because of cost barriers, or you have a number of young people, somewhere in their 18 to 30s range, and you would like to be able to bring them into some sort of work program so that they could gain skills that would be transferable to an actual career, AmeriCorps could be a great way to bridge that while also addressing some needs that you have within your community or within your school. The education award last year was $5,800 for a full-time student, so that would go a long way in covering some costs at a community college. I would also say that the education award, if you recruit a member who is over 55 years of age, that education award can be transferred to their child or their grandchild. So I know programs that specifically recruit retirees because those retirees obviously are retired, they're looking for ways to give back to their community, they receive a modest living allowance that typically doesn't impact their Social Security or their retirement payments, and then they receive that education award that they can give to a child or a grandchild. So it's really a win-win all around. There is a match component with AmeriCorps Kansas, and sometimes that's where we lose people right out the gate. Oh, there's no way if you want us to have a $70,000 grant that we can come up with $25,000. The money doesn't exist. Well, we're not asking you actually to come up with any cash in hand. This is about matching the expenses of the grant with your own expenses. So if you are going to give the AmeriCorps members office space, if you're going to provide the AmeriCorps members training and professional development, if someone is going to use their paid staff time to supervise these members, and there are some of our federal programs such as Title I or 21st Century Learning Centers where that funding can be used on match even though this is a federal grant as well. And of course your state general funds could always be used as match. So most people don't actually come up with any cash out of pocket. Instead, they're using operating expenses for the program as well as the salary from staff time to administer the program in order to meet that match. And it does stay at the low level of 24% for the first 3 years, and then over the next decade of programming, it will eventually top out at 50%. We have a number of focus areas that the Corporation for National and Community Service have identified. They are the actual grantor, and they subgrant that money to us, and then we subgrant that money out to our programs. But you could be looking at programming around disaster services, environmental stewardship, economic opportunity, education, healthy futures, or veterans and military family. So if you are in a veteran or military community, a military community or a community with a high number of veterans, that may be the programming that you would like to have your members do because it's somehow impacting the students who are at your school or district. Or maybe you want to look at economic opportunity. Maybe you're doing something with the parents. If you have a high number of parents who are unemployed or who lack a high school diploma and you want to do something in that sort of economic opportunity range. And then, of course, education and healthy futures are very popular ones for schools to utilize. The AmeriCorps members that will be part of the grant that you receive, those are members that you recruit yourself, and they are individuals who provide direct service. So if in a school district, they might serve as a graduation coach or an attendance coach, where they are tracking students' progress towards graduation or tracking their attendance, and they're sort of a one-on-one contact person for them, providing that caring relationship to keep them on track in both of those areas. It might be something around after school programming, so before, after school, during the summer, days off, where they could be doing things in the realm of tutoring, mentoring, providing enrichment activities. They might be doing some of that healthy futures work, where they're doing nutrition classes or sporting activities. You might have students who are leading some civic engagement activities or some service learning activities as we start to incorporate that into our curriculum. Really, the sky is the limit on the things that you could think about, as long as it is direct service. You could have AmeriCorps members that are serving in your child care or early childhood programming to provide that curriculum to students, obviously, of course, under the direction of a teacher. But there are a lot of different things that you could think about for this. So I wanted to walk you through the programs that we currently have and the ones that we're funding, so that if you have questions or you want to reach out to them, or you like what they're doing and you might want to model it in your own community, we can have that conversation. So the Boys and Girls Club of Lawrence, they have a lot of members, and they're providing academic interventions and enrichment activities during and after school. This is the program that works in partnership with the Lawrence School District, and they use a lot of the Lawrence School District's space. So the Lawrence School District is providing space for the members, and the members are serving in the actual classroom with the teachers to provide some of those small group opportunities. Harvesters out of Kansas City and Topeka, they have 7 members, and they are providing nutrition education classes. They're recruiting volunteers for the Harvest Food Bank, and they're helping individuals apply for their SNAP benefits. The Kansas Outdoor AmeriCorps Action Team, which is actually housed in the Kansas Department of Wildlife, Parks, and Tourism, they're focused on environmental stewardship, doing things in our state parks around trail maintenance, eradicating the invasive species that come in. They're doing some education in those state parks, and they also help with disaster recovery. KCK is our school that actually operates an AmeriCorps program, and those members are serving as a supplement to the after-school program that they have through the 21st Century Learning Center. So all 23 of their members, who are all half-time members, are recruited from the area, and they serve in those after-school, before, during, and after-school programming. And it really allows them to stretch the dollars that they receive with the 21st Century Learning Center to keep their student-to-teacher ratio low, or rather their student-to-adult ratio low, and also to be able to serve more students. The United Way of Douglas County is a really interesting one for us because it is our only intermediary model. And an intermediary is really fantastic because what it allows you to do is to take one organization that's capable of managing this large federal grant. Because hear me when I say this, for as much money as we have to give away, if you come into this thinking that it will be easy, I promise it won't. There are a lot of rules that come with managing a federal grant, and nothing like what you've ever experienced with any of the title funds. So many organizations just flat out don't have the capacity. They don't have the manpower, they don't have the systems that you need. But our school districts are fantastic because you're already managing federal money and you already have a lot of that infrastructure in place. And the United Way of Douglas County is the same way. They are able to manage this grant, and then they place the members in 10 organizations that are within the Douglas County area, so in and around Lawrence. small nonprofits who would not be able to manage this grant, but they're able to use it for Healthy Futures to provide helping people find housing, helping people find jobs, and helping people find access to health care. So if you yourself are a large school district who could manage a grant, you could also think about partnering with other school districts who might be in your county or who might be in your region to place members in their school district, because they might not have enough programming for 5 people to do, and you do have to request at least 5 members. And the last of our programs is our newest one, and that's the Rosedale Development Association. And they have 5 members in the Kansas City area, specifically the Rosedale neighborhood of KCK. And they're doing things around community and school garden programs, nutrition classes. They're running some sporting events for youth. They have community events, and they also are doing some things with seniors. So they're running the gamut of an age span here by providing minor home repair services for seniors, and then also some bike repair and trail maintenance as well. So our application, our NOFO is going to be released very soon, this upcoming week. In fact, you can find it on the website, which you'll see here in just a moment. And that application is going to be due at the end of the year, so December 29th, 2017. And that will be your preliminary application. We'll then take an internal look at it, make some feedback to you, and you'll submit your final application sometime in late January or early February. Again, I want to reiterate that we really want to have additional programming happening in our schools. We are housed in the Department of Education. We'd like at least half of our portfolio to benefit school districts because that's our biggest priority area. And right now, only 1 out of 8 of our programs is currently within a school district. So if you have an idea that you would like to mull over, or you're interested in more information, I hope that you'll reach out to me. You have my contact information there. And you also have our website where next week you can go and find all of the materials for applying for this grant. Thank you very much.
Hello everyone. Kerry Haag here today from the Early Childhood Special Education and Title Services team. This month I'm going to highlight some activities occurring with the SCCD standards, bullying prevention, professional development resources, conferences, and workshops coming up. In 2012, Kansas was the first state to adopt non-assessed model standards for social emotional character development. The integration of character development is a unique component. It is now time to update and refine those standards so we can stay on the cutting edge. That refinement is proposed to include child sexual abuse prevention, bullying, and suicide prevention within the framework of the standards. So ever grateful for the continued leadership of Kent Reed in this area. He's once again spearheading this process for the agency. A writing group of volunteers will meet for the first time on October 19th. This group will be composed of teachers, counselors, psychologists, administrators, parents, and community members from school districts and educational organizations across the state of Kansas. The writing group will be co-chaired by Noah Lee McDonald Augustine from the Smoky Hills Service Center and Wendy Teen from Circle School District. Now, Kent Reed is your go-to person for questions on the SCD standards revisions. Next, we're going to be featuring this week, and we are promoting schools to recognize the importance of teaching, modeling, and rewarding kindness. It is Kansas Anti-Bullying Awareness Week. The theme is Take a Stand, Lend a Hand. We know our schools provide positive, supportive climates for our learners. That's what we want. So we want everyone to take a moment and help increase everyone's awareness of the serious consequences of bullying. When you take a stand and lend a hand. KSD presents this work in partnership with the Kansas Children's Service League. We also have a number of resources on the web page that's highlighted on the screen. Kent Reed can assist you with your questions that you have, and we hope everyone has a productive anti-bullying week, or if you want to take advantage, make the whole month of October anti-bullying focus. Next is I want to highlight our Kansas MTSS Symposium. This event was attended by over 1,300 enthusiastic education professionals from many states in addition to Kansas. And this was held earlier in September. But I want to call your attention to the treasure trove of tools that are available as a result of this powerful event. Over half of the 80+ sessions address some element of social emotional character development, whether that be assessment, evaluation, classroom strategies, or district level strategies. So please consider visiting the conference materials link on www.ksdetazn.org. You'll be glad you did. Upcoming professional development that's occurring come in the forms of conferences and different workshops. In November, is the annual Fall Counselor Conference. In October, the Kansas Association of School Psychologists is having their fall convention. And coming up soon is the KSDE annual conference. These are all fantastic events to take advantage of. Also, we have some additional training that's occurring, and this would be a training of trainers that's looking at supporting districts in using behavior analytic and instructional strategies. And that's going to be in Wichita on the 24th. There's also an opportunity to engage in high-quality professional development around co-teaching, specifically co-teaching with paraeducators in Oakley on October 27th. And then further on in November, in Dodge City, experience effective instruction and cooperative learning structures. And these are actually is a sampling of the numbers of workshops that we have going on. And there are many more high-quality professional development events at the www.ksdetazn.org website. Well, that's all I have for this month. Thank you for all you do each and every day to help Kansas learners as Kansas works towards leading the world in the success of each student.
Well, hello everyone. It's Tammy Mitchell and
Jay Scott. Good morning.
And we are with the Kansas Redesign Project. I'm the elementary specialist and my colleague Jay is the secondary specialist. And we're excited to give you an update about what the Mercury 7 redesign schools are working on and what the Gemini project schools are working on concurrently. And so we'll start with the Kansans Can timeline for redesign. This is a very, very aggressive timeline because our Mercury schools are planning with the goal of launching their redesign plan fall of 2018. So right now, the Mercury schools are in this building the launch pad phase. They have all organized a redesign team. They are refining their shared vision for what redesign will look like in their school. And then they're taking that vision and turning it into a goal and figuring out goals and action steps that will lead to this shared vision. Next, they'll be working on a comprehensive redesign plan, and they'll be testing redesign strategies that they may want to include in this plan. We'll be working on that in the designing the rocket phase. Then phase 3, in the building the rocket phase, will be when they really dig into some details about how they're going to support the launch of their redesign plan, including figuring out how to reallocate financial resources if needed, what kinds of materials are in place, what kind of human resources are dedicated, and creating their professional development plan. In the summer, they will present their redesign plan to their local Board of Education and then also to the State Board of Education, with liftoff happening in August of 2018. This timeline looks pretty simple, but we want to emphasize that each one of these tasks is very, very involved and goes very deep. So it is a lot of work. I've been super impressed with the schools that we're working with. They're just digging in, and they're going to have exciting things to launch this time next year.
And so the next resource we'd like to share with everyone are the bedrock principles for the Mercury Project. While our 7 Mercury schools each will have a different idea of what redesign looks like in their school system, and this time next year, just like Tammy talked about, they will each look differently with how they've redesigned. These are the bedrock principles that must be addressed through any redesign project. And so these are our bedrock principles. Many of you will see some things that you're very familiar with, as our 5 state outcomes are embedded throughout these bedrock principles for the redesign project. So in the middle, we've got an elementary and a secondary redesign projects going in parallel, but what they must both address are social emotional learning, which is one of our 5 state outcomes, school organized around students, and that's really at the heart of this redesign project, in that we're trying to personalize learning. Our schools are trying to personalize learning down to each student, and so the school is not organized around what the adults feel like is the most efficient way to do school. It's organized around each student, and so student choice is involved, long-term projects, a heavy focus on extracurricular activities, maybe not after the school day or before the school day, but part of the school day. Physical activity and learning are tied to each other. And then the last one there, a balance of learning activities, because we've been out of balance for so long towards academics. And what Kansans told us was we need to rebalance our schools around academic, cognitive, technical employability, and civic engagement. A heavy emphasis on student and family relationships, and also business, industry, and community relationships. So those are the things that are shared between the elementary and the secondary redesign. What's unique to elementary is a focus on early childhood from birth to age 8 and kindergarten readiness, and then art and music are important to the development of each child as well. And at the secondary level, an individual plan of study for every student, and then really looking hard at the high school graduation rates and post-secondary success measures to impact how they redesign to move those in the positive direction. So those are the bedrock principles. No matter what redesign plan our Mercury schools come up with, even our Gemini schools come up with, those bedrock principles must be addressed and be a heavy part of their redesign.
So when talking about a comprehensive redesign plan, I'd like to show you a graphic. And this also shows just the, if you were wanting to redesign your system, you would start in the center with the why. Why do we want to change teaching and learning? And this kind of why goes beyond the obvious. I mean, the obvious is we want to change teaching and learning, I don't know, maybe because our academic data shows that we need to. Well, that's the obvious why. But the real why is more of a motivation or a heart issue, where when teachers come up with the why and they believe in the why and the community believes in the why and parents believe in the why, then the change will be sustainable long term. And so that's the steps that when we talk about refining a vision, schools and districts are starting with a really deep exploration of this why. Now what's funny about that is everybody wants to jump to the what and how, because what and how is in some ways more exciting, but when you jump to the what and how without the why, then then it's going to be really, really hard to choose. There are so many great things that could be implemented that without a strong why, it's hard to say no to the really good things so that you can say yes to the very best. And so as schools are working through building this comprehensive redesign plan, they start with why, and then they work out to what. And you can see that, what would these changes look like in practice? The icons around the edge, are things that have to be specifically planned for. Scheduling and timing, learning environment, student and teacher experience, data and assessment. All of these details, if they're not addressed and planned for completely and fully, then the possibility of a redesign plan not being able to launch is pretty strong. So I wanted to show you this comprehensive redesign plan. It comes from Supporting Schools to Transform Teaching and Learning, and it's an August 2016 document. So if you wanted that and you couldn't find it through any of our resources, you can Google this resource and find this redesign plan template yourself.
And so the next thing about that, Tammy talking about the why, that's really what we've charged the districts to be doing right now. And so we wanted to show you some highlights from schools around that type of work. So as we scroll through here, you can see this is Coffeyville, Field Kinley High School, and their Roosevelt Middle School together, combined redesign team, which is a really nice feature that Coffeyville has set up. They're working on their why. And in that picture, you can see they're actually discussing their vision for the project. So dreaming big, having some really high level 30,000 foot version conversations as they talk through their why. So that's really been the work that we've been doing throughout our schools.
The Coffeyville Elementary team is ready to take their why to the next level and build research teams. And so I wanted to show you this. This is teacher created. They're the Twisters. And they wanted to make sure that their staff felt really, really involved. And so they are marketing this opportunity to the rest of their staff, and they're putting it in a why that resonates with teachers. So you can see that, do you want, what are you tired of? Do you want, and including having a voice. They have their redesign vision here, but they say, join a redesign goal team today. Voila, you have created your new school. I think that that's the power in this process, is the teacher voice and the teacher why, because we want to make sure that those who work closest to the students are the ones that are empowered with that why. So many things that we do with schools are a top-down, either top-down from state to district, or top-down from administrator to teacher, and it really needs to be both ways. It needs to be, power at the teacher level, and support at the district level.
And that's a great example of setting up a really nice feedback loop within a district of the work that's going on within the redesign team. And all of our redesign teams are struggling with how do we involve all staff, parents, students in this process. So setting up those tight feedback loops are really important, and that's a great example right there, Twister redesign of how to do that. So just some other highlights. Stockton, they had an all-staff meeting where they presented their vision to the staff. They presented their goal areas. One of their goal areas, I know, and this is a K-12 redesign, so Tammy and I are both meeting with a combined redesign team in Stockton, and one of their that came out through their KESA needs assessment, and that's something that we didn't mention, but a lot of our districts are using their needs assessment results through the accreditation process to really firm up why and address goal areas. So Stockton here is looking at rigor, and we heard something really good this week from our redesign crew, that rigor is, if you ask your students about rigor, Ask them a couple questions. One is, did you struggle while you were learning this? And number two, did you enjoy the struggle? And that was this person's definition of rigor. And I think that was a really good way to frame what rigor looks like. So Stockton is wrestling with it, and that's part of their redesign.
Just maybe a couple more highlights, because I know we're running a little long on time. But I wanted to show you, if you were wanting to know what this looks like, if you were wanting to know what this work looks like, here is a team from Liberal, and you can see the redesign principles on one side, and then over here they were recording their thoughts with their vision in the middle, and then the things that they're brainstorming that they may want to include in their redesign plan to move towards that vision. And so it's a lot of deep conversations. They're working with building this in a way, and then recording their work in Kansas Star so that it fits nicely with what they need to do with their Title I plan, and then it also fits nicely with what their district will be doing with KESA. So it's not three separate things. It's one thing. It's just a little different process to get to some pretty dramatic redesign results.
So those are just some highlights from the road, from our schools. Tammy and I are in the middle of cycle 3, our third visits to schools. So if anybody that's listening to this has interest, please contact us here at the State Department of Education. Jay Scott, Tammy Mitchell, let us know what support you need. Eventually, this is going to be scaled across the state, and so we know there's a lot of interest in redesign out there. So anything that we can provide to you in your schools, please let us know, and we'll make sure we can provide that to you.
So until next time, this is Tammy and Jay signing off. Have a great week.